I find it interesting watching movies with my parents, especially my mom. She would be like asking questions throughout.
Oh man, that's the worst.
Yep, my mom's like that too. Wait, what happened? Like she'll repeat what just happened. Like this happened, right? Yes, mom. You need reassurance.
Yeah.
Is he dead?
Like,
Okay, there should be like a rule where if something is more than 10% into the plot or 20%, like you're not allowed to ask what's going on or what's happening.
Like parents need a reassurance that what they're watching is what's happening.
Yeah, we're like, well,
He did
why are
die,
they
right?
doing that?
He got
Why are they
hit.
doing that? It's like, well, I don't know. It's 5 minutes into the movie. Like maybe like the other hour and 45 minutes is going to explain that. Just a hunch, but maybe. Let's find out. Greetings and fist bumps. This is the Raised Eyebrow Podcast, where we explore how this whole humanity thing has gotten a little carried away, because somebody's got to do it, and we're your hosts, Mike, Kojo, and Alex. In this week's episode, apparently the Big Bang never happened. Yep, that's right, the one significant event that started out the universe may have not even taken place. So what does that mean? Were the flat earthers right all along? What is this universe thing anyways, and why should we care? Okay guys, so given this new information, has your understanding of life been fractured?
It never happened. Because think about it. If a tree falls into the forest and it doesn't make, you're not there, does it make a sound? No, we weren't there when the Big Bang happened. So, it never happened.
Maybe.
For me, I'll say it doesn't fracture anything because we still won't know how the universe started. So let's say the Big Bang Theory was a thing. What happened before that? Like who created the Big Bang Theory? It's like, okay, so if that got created, like who created that? If there's a God, who created God? Yeah, like if there's a God, who created the God, right? So okay, so there's no Big Bang Theory, fine. But then how do we get here?
It was James Cameron.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, James
Yeah,
Cameron.
obviously.
Or Steven Spielberg. I don't know.
So I did research on, I found this on like YouTube videos, just, these like, did you know, all that kind of stuff. So I was watching this thing and I was like, this is kind of, I don't know. I'm going to call bullshit. So I looked up what very acclaimed astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson has to say about it. And on his podcast, Star Talk podcast, great podcast, by the way, flat out, not true. It's bullshit. It's all clickbait.
So the Big Bang happened.
Yeah, it happened. And
Yay.
his rationale was quite simple. He's like, the scientific process is that you introduce a new idea and it's up for scrutiny. And the reason why the Big Bang Theory is the accepted theory for how the universe was created was because it has been able to withstand scrutiny over the years. And that's why it's an accepted practice. As new information comes to the light, everything gets revisited. That's the scientific process. But the James Webb Telescope has revealed a lot about our universe, but it has not revealed anything that contradicts the Big Bang Theory. In fact, it does many things to confirm the Big Bang Theory. Quite the opposite. It's just one of those perils of clickbait is what is essentially what this is all about.
You plot twisted us. You M. Night.
It's a total
M.
plot
Night
Shyamalan. I'm like, yeah,
this. But you do risk losing loyal listeners early on in the podcast, or either people who are Big Bang Theory loyalists, if that's a thing, or religious folks who both of which turned off our episode. If you're still listening,
Yeah. I think the question I have for things like this is, do we limit ourselves? I mean, I understand like usually for scientific studies, you come up with a thesis and then you try and understand it based on that idea. But do we limit ourselves if we agree that it started as such? And so even though we're looking with telescopes and stuff, we try to confirm our thesis.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So for the scientific process, we don't necessarily agree that the Big Bang Theory is the case. We agree on the process, and through the process, the evidence has indicated thus far that the Big Bang Theory is the accepted practice. But if we get to a point where, let's say, we're able to time travel or jump through wormholes or something like that, where our technology advances to a point where we're able to interact with the universe on a grander scale, the Big Bang Theory may be obsolete at that point. There might be there might be something else that actually is what the Big Bang Theory actually is, or to replace it, for example. So
it's got to withstand scrutiny.
We agree,
which is what you were saying earlier, Alex.
We agree with the process, not the
constantly
idea.
Question.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Science. The whole idea behind science is to question everything, even after the evidence is there. Still keep questioning, and if there's better evidence, then the science changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even for religious theories, like it kind of makes sense with the approach of the Big Bang. Because like you take the Bible and it says in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And, but then in the creation of, like when God said, let there be light, something must have happened. You get the idea?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean like that's...
Think about it as, like the Christian idea of the world coming into being. Right? Scientists would say there's no God, or atheists would say there's no God and the universe just happened, which is agreeable. And then in the mind of the Christian who believes that God said, let there be light, that too is also on the same idea of like even the Big Bang happening.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
I got you. Like the idea of a creation stemming from something like that. But I think with religion, it gets weird when it's like very specific things that are in the mythology. So like God had to rest for one day because God gets tired.
True. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the story of Jesus has been around for thousands of years. Like before that, it was Mithra, who was a Persian god. There was Osiris, who was a Greek god. There was Horus, who was an Egyptian god. And this story was around in that region, same exact mythology, right? Resurrected, had 12 disciples, was the light, the lamb, the way. And the story, nobody questions it because Christianity took over. And so like all these gods with similar mythology, the story just got passed around in the regions to the point where people adopted it as like, this is dogma. This is the gospel, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. And I think for human beings, like, we all don't know when we're seeking, but then there are times when we try to use stories to confirm what we're searching for. Because I think for a lot of people, I think there are two different kinds of people. There's the people who can live without really caring about how the universe is formed, and then there's some who need to know how the universe is formed. And for those who
seekers
don't, like them not knowing how the universe is formed, once you tell them a story, that allows them to live their daily life, which they don't have to worry about how the universe is formed. And there's some who, so I think for some people, like the religious story or allows them to, like just go about their daily life. And then there's some who's like, oh, if God is not alive, then what is life all about? And then it's a whole stress.
I think it's like, to me, it's more of like stories with humanity has always been to fill the gaps in our knowledge. Like we always kind of use, like, for example, like with when sailors were crossing the oceans, they heard like these songs coming out from the deep and these big moaning sounds. So they thought it was like a kraken or this monster thing. But it turns out it was just whales. But they thought that, like, so they would kind of fill in the gaps with like these sea monsters, or there was like this giant squid that would like pull down ships, but really it was just the weather. And they would kind of use the truth is always kind of a dull version of the fiction. Yeah. But they would use stories to kind of like fill the gaps in. Right. And in the knowledge until the truth has the ability to catch up, which kind of reminds me of two quotes. So one of them is that a lie told often enough becomes the truth. That was actually said by Vladimir Lenin. And then even when it comes to misinformation, this one's often attributed to Winston Churchill, even though he never said it. A lie is halfway around the world before the truth has the chance to put its boots on. So it's like a lie is always more compelling and interesting than the truth. A story is always more compelling and interesting than usually just what it is, right? Like you're sitting at home, you hear these weird noises, you're like, oh, it's a ghost, but really it's just your furnace turning on.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's very interesting how every culture has its own creation story. Like, Native Americans on the back of a turtle. And then you have religion. I mean, Christianity has its version. I'm not exactly sure how Islamic version goes, but I think it probably might be similar to Christian. But yeah, every culture has their own story, and I think it's just a way to just allow the people to, just go about their daily life and not worry about things we can't explain.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this is the big one for me. I think people have a fear of death. Our mortality is the biggest thing that haunts us as a human species. So we need a sense of peace. We need a sense of comfort, and we need a sense of like predictability. Like there's something in my corner that's protecting me and my family and brings me that peace. Right. And yes, like people who maybe are more, like you said, Kojo, there's two types of people who are more inquisitive, maybe intellectually minded. They can't accept dogma, right? And so they'll ask questions, they'll seek, but ultimately as humans, I don't believe we'll know the answer. So you have to find that peace however you can find that peace. But then also with religion, I think it's, at least back in time, it was the best way to control people, right? You tell them, this is your code, here's the code, here's how you are a good person, follow these rules. And if you don't agree with what someone does, kill them. No.
Yeah.
Crusades and Inquisitions.
Yeah.
And 9/11. But that's the dark stuff, right? Religion, I mean, the good part of it is it brings communities together, right? Like you don't necessarily have to believe in the dogma, but you can see grandma at church and give her a hug and, sing gospel songs.
But also,
that's okay too, right?
It teaches like a standard of ethics too, right? Like a way of living, treat others with respect. Like one thing, like the founding fathers of the United States, they saw like the Constitution and everything that they established when they set up the government, that was for the governmental structure in terms of how people legally interact with each other. But they saw that faith on the other side was the ethical side. That was essentially as it was described to me, it was the backbone to society. It allowed people to have a common place to know how they should be interacting with each other because of the Bible. Obviously, at the time, United States was heavily Christian at the time. It's not as diverse as it is now. So, I mean, like religion does have a very bloody past and a lot of things that have happened. But I think that the one major factor that people do seek religion for consistently is the ethics and essentially the way of living life, right? And that's usually told through stories, and we still do that now today with like, to learn how to love or how to overcome conflicts. We go to the movie theater for that, or we go to Netflix for that, and we learn how to kind of deal with certain things, or have the ability to kind of walk in someone else's shoes where we have no experience for that. So as a man, I can watch a movie about a woman and understand what it's like to be a woman raising a child, and watch a TV show about that. But I can learn through empathy.
Yeah. I think one thing that I've noticed, this might probably be going too far off topic from what we're talking about, but I hope it's not. idea of, I think the Western culture did such an amazing job in terms of foreseeing how do different cultures live together, and therefore coming up with a more circular way of um, living where we don't really need to rely on religion to treat our neighbor as, like, because I think usually with other cultures, like especially from the African culture, for instance, which I'm used to, um, religion, which is kind of like don't touch your neighbor's stuff. If you touch your neighbor's
Right.
something bad is going to happen to you. And then
It's a sin.
the Western culture, when everyone came together from different places, now we need to, how do I treat my neighbor who's not a Christian or who's not a an like Hindu? Like, how do we all live together? And I think the Western
Mm-hmm.
culture, removing religion, allows a different way of living where we don't have to rely on that um, religious platform. But I think
It's
what
also,
has now happened to other cultures, especially the African culture, is now the things that we saw as, gods, like the trees, the rivers, the lakes, now we don't respect them anymore, right? So then,
Right.
here in the West, like there was a law that passed where you can a river could sue a, a company if you mistreat the river.
yeah, Lake Erie has that actually.
Kind of.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. If you pollute Lake Erie will sue you for
Yeah.
assault.
How does Lake Erie appear in court?
It has representatives, yeah. Yeah, which
okay.
like
Yeah.
I'm actually
It's got its own
curious
lawyers.
about that. Like, how do you talk on behalf of
What
the
are
lake?
the-
But hey, it's post production Alex here. Just going to give a little more context on this. So this is not clickbait. This is actually a real thing. It's called the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, and what it does is that it allows people to file lawsuits on the lake's behalf. So effectively, the lake can be represented in court, which is kind of a unique, novel idea. However, it has since been found unconstitutional due to a particular case in February 2020, which is the Drews Farms versus the city of Toledo. This is an illegal show, so we're not going to go down case law and precedent and all that kind of fun stuff because that's just too boring. But lakes representing themselves in court, kind of interesting idea. Not sure where I land on that, but it is a thing, or at least was a thing. It's no longer, which is kind of sad. But anyways, let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
What are the legalities there?
It's amazing structure. But then in the African culture, it was pretty much like, the gods will punish you if you mistreat the river.
Yeah.
But now we don't respect the rivers anymore. So we're actually currently right now, tomorrow, like you can turn on the news right now, and the rate at which the Chinese people are robbing the nations of Africa is sad. It's sad. Like you can't drink right now. You can't drink from a river in Ghana. You can't drink from a lake in Ghana. Why? Because they're mining all the golds, all the chemicals that they use to mine. It's now destroying all the rivers, and the natives are selling the lands to them because we don't respect the land anymore. We're Christians now.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
Humans.
This one was about like the topic of this one was about perils of clickbait, of which leads to a lot of contention in society, right? Where people, they kind of, you learn something and it ends up being false, like what happened to me and what happened to you guys. I thought when I was watching these videos about how the Big Bang didn't happen, I just had the wherewithal to kind of look at like, well, what does somebody who know what they're talking about, what do they have to say? I looked up what Neil deGrasse Tyson had to say, and he's like, no, it doesn't. And he responded to it directly. Like there's one podcast where he responded to it directly. And even like recently there was, so like there's these AI art, which you've probably seen come out a lot, where you would type into a search box, and then an artificial intelligence software would kind of produce a visual based on what you type. So somebody wrote into the search box, Legend of Zelda, starring Tom Holland, produced by Netflix. And there's like this Netflix poster that's circling around the web of basically Tom Holland as Link in The Legend of Zelda. And then there's like Emma Watson's going to play Zelda. And a lot of people thought this was true. And they thought that Netflix was actually going to produce this. People are all excited about it. And Netflix had to come out and be like, no. We like this doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not true.
Wow.
And they had to like dispel it. Yeah.
Jeez.
But I mean, in hindsight, Netflix and Nintendo, who owns the rights to Zelda, I mean, they probably should get together and be like, hey, maybe we should produce this film because a lot of people like it, and Zelda doesn't have a movie yet. It would be an amazing, especially with Tom Holland and Emma Watson starring. That would be amazing.
Jump on that.
Yeah.
On that topic, there's have you guys heard of deep fakes?
Deep fakes,
oh
yes.
Where it's like, I don't know, like a few years ago, back when Barack Obama was still president, they did a deep fake compilation of his speeches, and I forget what the topic was, but they made it sound like he was saying something that he wasn't saying, and people were like, oh, did you hear Barack Obama said this, this, and this? And it's like, no, it was just a deep fake video that went viral.
Yep.
But that's the danger of, I guess, this new AI technology, because it can manipulate reality, right?
Yeah,
it's scary.
Yeah, and check your facts too. Like it's important to like just don't get information from one source. You know, go to trusted sources to verify it, because but even trusted sources are kind of at fault too. I've seen it on both sides of the aisle, like right and left. There would be like, you know, the politician who's on the opposite side of the aisle to be like, oh, did you see what this person says? And it's like, spreads like wildfire on that side. And they're both
tricky,
guilty of it and victims to it. And it's just like a way for people to kind of stir up fervor for what's going on. Yeah. I've seen it done for like,
and it gets tricky. It gets tricky with topics that have like, you know, different opinions. So like, I don't know, something as simple as like, is caffeine good for you? You'll go online and it's like, 10 reasons why caffeine is the best for you. I think, Alex, you sent me a meme or like some clip where the guy Googles it based on his opinion, and then the opposite search, here are 10 reasons why caffeine is bad for you. It's like, well, which is it? Or, you know, is fasting good for you? Well, 5 reasons why fasting, you know, makes you Superman. And then the opposite is 5 reasons why fasting will kill you if you don't do it properly. So it's like, okay, well, what's the right information?
The machine is designed to tell you exactly what you want to hear.
Algorithms.
No, that's true. Just what you want to hear.
Blame me on the
and you already get these suggestions on YouTube, right? So YouTube knows how you think. So it's like, okay, here's a video from so-and-so.
Yep.
It's going to back up how you think. And then Netflix knows the types of movies you like. So that's different. It's not an opinion. It's just movie taste. But, you know, AI knows our predispositions, right?
Yeah.
So unless you're a person who is well-rounded, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So learn how to think critically, I guess. You have to teach kids in school at a young age.
Yeah, to that I have 2 recommendations. One is just do your homework. Read
Go to
around,
church.
Read both sides.
Read your Bible.
Do what?
Go to church.
Yeah,
read your Bible.
Just read around. But also like mess with your algorithm too. Like just throw it off, right? Like, you know, if you're into I'll use sports as a metaphor for other stuff in life. So if you're into like soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, and your algorithm just keeps spitting out, you know, Lionel Messi highlight picks, throw it off. Start looking up stuff for basketball, you know, just doesn't know which way is up. Yeah. And you'll find that when you start to search for stuff, it'll be a little bit more, because it doesn't know where you land on the spectrum. It'll just kind of like, here's a bunch of stuff. Yeah, you figure it out. Stuff. I don't know. I don't know what you are.
Yeah.
But then you get stuff that you're not interested in. It's like, why am I seeing this?
Yeah.
So
I had this
that's
one
the
teacher
downside
in
of it. But
university. Their advice was, if you like, they use the waiting room at a doctor's office as an example. They're like, if you're sitting there in a waiting room and you have a stack of magazines on the table beside you, don't read the magazine that you're interested in. Read the magazines that you would never pick up otherwise, because that's the only way you're going to learn something new. And you should instill that in your everyday life. Just always expose yourself to stuff that you're just not interested in.
What classes was this?
Advertising.
Is it journalism?
Yeah.
Advertising.
No,
okay.
just an advertising teacher. Just because her rationale there for advertising was that you have no idea what kind of clients you're going to work on. So the only way to actually be ready for them is that you read around.
Right.
And I've been doing that ever since.
Yeah, I think it's always good when you have different opinions on stuff, because it allows you to be more aware.
It's the way to be. Well-rounded people.
But I think it's very difficult though, because it's like one of those things where you're like, okay, I like oranges. Tell me why I shouldn't eat oranges. Like it's like you don't want somebody to tell you that the thing that you love is not the best.
Yeah, you don't want to hear that, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
But I think if you're that passionate about oranges, you should understand oranges as best as you can. I think that's my rationale.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just maybe it's a personality thing. Maybe that's just how I'm wired. I think most people, if they love oranges, I shouldn't say most people, but many people, if they like oranges, that's their life.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to convince them otherwise. That's ingrained in them, right?
Yeah.
Similar to things like religion or whatever dogma exists, right? You can't change people's minds. I think the older I get, the more I realize that all you can do is like form a well-rounded opinion from your own knowledge or whatever knowledge you're able to research.
Yeah.
That's the best you can do.
This morning I was listening to a podcast on This American Life, and there was this really sad story that I was like, man, can you imagine? Anyway, it's based on COVID, and the father has two kids, a son and a daughter, and they're both older, but the son lived with him, and he's made his mind that COVID is like manufactured, all that stuff. So decided not to get vaccinated. Anyway, fast forward, he gets COVID, the son gets COVID, the sister is now concerned. Actually, the father dies, the son called the sister that, hey, dad is dead, whatever. And then they're like, well, since you were, helping him, perhaps you also have COVID. And because he doesn't believe he has COVID, he didn't get a checkup. But the part that actually caught my attention was when the sister was advising him to get tested and go to the hospital, another cousin was like, wait, going to the hospital is going to kill you. So then there's all these two conflicting messages going on.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, wow.
And it's like, how do you actually get information in a way that actually benefits you? Because I think the cousin who's advising this guy is doing it in good intention. Hey, I want to protect you.
Yeah.
The government is out to get you. And then the sister is like, hey, my brother, go get checked up because that's the best place. The hospital is going to care for you in the best possible way.
But even like with the hospital, a lot of cases were reported where the ventilators, when someone goes on a ventilator, they have a higher chance of dying because the ventilator is like making their lungs like go in and out, like forcing it to breathe, and it's not good for the lungs. So you would have a higher chance of dying being on a ventilator, not because of COVID, but because your lungs just give out because of the ventilator.
Yeah.
So
they don't work anymore.
Yeah, but it's like, there's so many just conflicting knowledge. I think in my view, I think in general, everybody should take a page from New York Jets fans or New York Mets fans. And both of the fans of both of those teams they read their team and they're very honest with their team. They know their team will always get their hopes up and they know that. but they know that as soon as it comes near the end of the season, everything's just going to crash and burn. They're going to miss the playoffs. It's never going to amount to what it needs to be. But they're honest with themselves about it, and they're still fans, and they still show up to the games. They still wear the caps, they wear the jerseys, they support the team. But they know at the end of the day, they're just honest with themselves, and I think that's, to me, I think those fandoms, they have a lot of heartache, that's for sure. But it's amazing how they can just consistently lose like that. But by just being honest with yourself in life and the things that you kind of deal with, I think that you can kind of navigate those situations a little bit better. So you don't get your hopes up about things because you know that they're just going to end up crashing and burning later on. Like your pitching staff or something like that.
Yeah, and like be hard on the thing that you're biased towards. You have to scrutinize it too. I think I was listening to Bill Burr, great comedian, he has a podcast. Like he was replying to someone who it was, it's the classic communism versus the capitalism debate. And Bill Burr's he's a capitalist, but this person was like, well, how could you say that communism isn't terrible for the world or something like that? And he just goes on this tirade like, listen, like it's awful, but so is capitalism, and I want capitalism to win like my favorite sports team, but I'm still going to talk smack to my favorite sports team because I want them to get better.
Exactly.
Right. So it's like the thing that you support, you're going to be hard on that too because you want it to improve.
Yeah.
So like tough love is also good, right?
Yeah.
So if I like oranges and there are there's some part of the orange that's bad for me, I should know about it too.
Final thoughts?
If you ever see one of those ads that's like 10 ways to do this, this, and this, don't click it because it's a scam.
Yeah, it's called clickbait for a reason. Yeah.
Or here are 100 celebrities that don't look anything like how they used to look in 1987, and then I'm gonna click that. And I'm gonna go through each page till I get to the screen capture that I saw originally in the banner.
It should be a game for that. Is it a clickbait or is it not?
Clickbait or not?
I just want to know who writes
personality quiz
stuff.
Or something.
Like somebody's job to dream up clickbait for the sole reason that they just have to like load these pages a lot, and then they always have ads like right where like the button always moves, and like the ad was always where the button used to be. It's like, yeah, it's just like the worst. Yeah,
it makes money, right? What can you do?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean,
like the regular news story it's not exciting.
Yeah, and then the news tries to act like clickbait.
Yep, and they're gonna regurgitate that for the next month.
Yeah,
like here's a story that you might think is different, but it's the same story you've heard for the last month.
Yeah. Oh, Big Bang didn't happen. Oh, but actually it did.
Yeah, like for instance, our show. For instance, what is the main reason why we're doing this show? If the reason is to get more followers, then we'll be doing stuff like clickbaity. Like it's like which
why are we doing this show?
We're bored.
Yeah, boredom.
Just want to talk. Yeah. Just want to talk shit about humans.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Including ourselves.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Conversation, good conversation with friends that we want to do in public.
Yeah, because I think a lot of companies, publishers, everyone is trying to get numbers. Like you watch a TV show on Netflix and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing, and it's like 10 views. Meanwhile, the show that is like really bad has like 1 million views, and they get the budget.
Yeah. Yep.
So now it's like we're all trying to, get more followers. So the followers is more important than the message that we're giving, and I think that's the reason why we're in this mess that we're in at the moment.
Yep. By the way, follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter. Make sure you follow the podcast on all channels, because we're all about the followers.
Raised Eyebrow Podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, kids. What do you got?
Yeah, and remember, kids, to just do your homework on all things in life. Yeah. Your grade 4 teacher was right about something.
Well done. Brought it back full circle.